Satyamayi Parame Satyamayi Parame Satyamayi Parame Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda. So if we are just walking past in bright sunlight, very often we'll see sunlight falling on different patches. Sometimes it will fall on a dirty puddle, sometimes it will fall on a beautiful flower, but the sunlight doesn't change, does it? Does it diminish when it falls on something murky and not so nice? Does it brighten when it falls on something beautiful? No. So the beauty of the sun is it does not change whatever it falls on. And that's why sunshine is a symbol of freedom, right? It's free because it's never altered by anything it intercepts. So we always go by the phrase Yatha Brahmande Tatha Pinde, as is the macrocosm, the larger universe, so is the microcosm, the smaller universe. So in me too, there must be something like sunshine, something that is always free because it never changes no matter what arises in it. So the sunshine in me is that part of me which doesn't alter when an unhappy thought passes, which doesn't become more when a happy thought comes. So that in me which is constant no matter what arises in the realm of my thoughts, emotions or body sensations. So that constant, as a metaphor I've used the sunshine, but that constant something within us is the real me, because thoughts and emotions keep changing. I can't be that which keeps changing with thoughts and emotions. The title of our talk is Know Yourself and Forget Yourself. So to know that I am really this eternal, infinite presence, this consciousness behind thought, which is never altered by thought, which cannot be diminished by the worst thought, and which doesn't become brighter with a happy thought. So because I am that in my deepest, the Vedic rishis promise me that you are that which is Nitya Shuddh, eternally pure, Nitya Tript, eternally contented, and Nitya Poorn, eternally complete. So in my surface mind, I'm often grappling with inadequacy, I'm not enough, this is not enough. But behind all that incompleteness, I am this presence which is always whole, complete, lacking nothing, and so actually desireless. So in lots of traditions like Buddhism, etc., we are told that suffering can be ended and suffering ends when desires stop. But you cannot stop desires piecemeal. You find union with that behind the desiring thought which is completely full, and so it can't have desires. So in the Upanishads, there's a beautiful mantra, Atma Kamam, if you have desire for the self. Apta Kamam, in that all desires are fulfilled. Akamam, then all the desires of your surface mind lose meaning, because you are that background consciousness which is Apta Kamam, already full, already complete. Nitya Tript, Nitya Shuddh, Nitya Poon. So if you recognize that part of yourself, then desires become meaningless. But it's a futile battle to keep fighting desires piecemeal. So all traditions recognize this. The Sufis would say that you are the eternal sunshine of a spotless mind. Sunshine, this awareness, you're eternal and you're that sunshine of a spotless mind which is Nitya Shuddh. So the question is, how do we, this part of us is there but it's veiled, we are not conscious of it. How can we become conscious of this in us, which is the key to our freedom? Because if we find that in us which doesn't change with the changes of life, that's our experience of freedom, right? We are bound because we keep changing. Our happiness quotient keeps changing with this thought, this circumstance, that circumstance. And the only way we can really be free is if we find that in us which doesn't alter, which is free of being a prisoner to your thoughts, and that exists in you right now. Right now, each of us is the eternal sunshine of a spotless mind. But how do we access this? This freedom is there, but if we don't have a conscious relationship with it, it's not very meaningful to our human experience. So to access this, we have to understand something about our thoughts, because what blocks us away from this presence, this consciousness, is our compulsive thinking. And for all of us, there are two fundamental ignorances in our thinking process. Anyone? What are the two? What are the two things that are fundamentally wrong in our relationship with thought? Or ignorant, not wrong. Two fundamental ignorances. You believe your thoughts. Firstly, there's a blind belief in our thoughts. We take them seriously. Whatever thought suggests to us, if it suggests, oh, the war will come to India, I'll lose my loved ones, whatever, we blindly believe it. If the thought suggests that one, my precious one, the relationship is going to go for a toss, I'm going to lose, we blindly believe it. But Mother has said it repeatedly that your mind and thought is not an instrument of truth. With your thoughts, you can never ever know the truth. So whatever your thoughts suggest to you, remind yourself, it's not a true assessment of circumstances or reality. It's just a conditioned program from my subconscious mind coming into my conscious front. So one is, don't believe your thoughts, and two, yeah, but what about, yeah, thoughts will become emotions, but two, so nice, there is someone looking out for you, that's true, but that's not about your relationship with thoughts. Prisha, you've just studied it for your board. Think. Huh? Addiction to thinking, that's right. So basically we feel we are the thoughts, we are identified with our thoughts. So we feel, I mean, there's no, whatever I tell you just now as you sit here, you won't believe me if I tell you you're not your thoughts, right? Because you're so very identified with your thoughts. But two things that are fundamental ignorance with our thinking is we are identified with our thoughts and we believe our thoughts blindly. Whereas the experience of all the seers, Sri Aurobindo himself, what was his fundamental experience where his relationship with thoughts changed? What was it? Come on, you've just studied it for the boards.
Was it in the jail?
No, not in jail. Yeah? So when he sat with Bhaskar Lele, who told him that no thought is your own, thoughts come to you from outside, don't let them enter. So if any of us are told that, we'll just not know what to do with it. But he was Sri Aurobindo. He sat on that swing in Baroda and he saw thought bubbles coming towards him, and just by an act of will he wouldn't let them enter. And in 2-3 days his mind was completely silent. So it's a fact, sages and enlightened beings can experience it, but that experience is available to us also with a little effort, that no thought is really ours, all thoughts come from outside. So to disidentify with thought and to not believe them, if you can just do that much and you step back and you watch a thought, you will get some glimpse of the seer behind. So let's just do it. Let's sit quietly. So the witness in us is the impartial observer, the one who observes everything with no judgment whatsoever. So it's difficult to witness thoughts. Let's start by witnessing something easy to witness, which is our breath. And by witnessing the breath, somewhere we strengthen our power to witness. So start by watching the breath, whether at the belly or the nostrils, wherever it's more visible to each one of you. Now become aware of thoughts. Remember the two principles. Thoughts don't tell me the truth about anything, so I don't take them seriously. Secondly, I am not the thought. A good thought doesn't make me a good person. A bad thought doesn't make me a bad person. So I'm breathing, I'm watching the thoughts come and go. I'm arresting judgment towards them. Judgment arises as raga or dvesh, attachment to a pleasant thought, aversion to an unpleasant thought. If I'm clear that thoughts are not real, and I don't take them seriously, already the rag and dvesh will be less. So I arrest any judgment towards thoughts. I'm watching my breath and I watch the thoughts come and go, not identified with them. So when I was doing it with my 10th standard last week, one girl came up with a beautiful metaphor which we can use. She said, I imagined I was in a fast moving train and I just stepped off the train and watched the train go by. That train is the train of thoughts, and I am outside watching the train whiz by. not affected by anything that's going on in the train because I'm outside of it. So my words can only point to the experience. The actual witness poise only your inner wisdom and grace can give you. So let's be quiet and allow grace to work. See if you can become aware of a background stillness. Try and pay more attention to that background stillness than the foreground train of thoughts. Slowly open your eyes, and even with your eyes open, see if you can continue to witness. You don't really have to shut your eyes. Even as you're listening to me, see if one part of you can be witnessing the voice in your head, which is thoughts. Any questions? Yes?
When we say that I am not the thought should tell me the truth, that is still okay. But when we say thoughts are not mine, thoughts are, so do those thoughts come from our subconscious archives, in that sense it is my thought will be different from this thought?
See, for that you should read, Sri Aurobindo has described beautifully in the canto on Nirvana in Savitri, the manufacture of thought, how they come from the universal subconscious and then they enter our subconscious, and he says a special trick labels them our own and they arise as a personal thought, but they are not really ours. Depending on our frequency, we attract them and then they play out and we think they are ours, but they are not really ours. You can read that canto on Nirvana. If you message me, I'll tell you the page number. Sri Aurobindo has beautifully described how thoughts come. So, now we come to words of Sri Aurobindo. He says, "Look up, O child of the ancient yoga, and be no longer a trembler and a doubter. Fear not, doubt not, grieve not, for in your apparent body is one who can create and destroy worlds with her breath." So beautiful. So Sri Aurobindo is telling us that behind our smallness, we are that infinite consciousness that can create and destroy worlds with her breath. But Mother also says that where two opposites meet is the point of highest truth. So contrast this with once when Swami Vivekananda was told something about Ramakrishna, that you are so great and your masters in India. So he roared that Ramakrishna is one who can create and destroy 1,000 Vivekanandas in a second. So Sri Aurobindo is saying that I am so great that I can destroy and create worlds in a breath, and that's true. But that's true for my deeper self. Whenever my frontal self starts feeling arrogant about anything, I find it very useful to say that mother can create and destroy 1,000 Anahitas in a second. It's a very, very humbling thought that whatever we are, the Guru can create and destroy thousands of those. So what we have to forget is that frontal small self, and what we have to know is that vaster self behind, and to know that we are both simultaneously existing.
One more thing to it. Not you and I,
Everybody, of course, of course. So now we come to words of Savitri, page 537. His soul must be wider than the universe. His soul is a seeker, a man, and feel eternity as its very stuff, rejecting the moment's personality. See, thoughts are always creating a momentary personality. If you examine thought, your sense of I changes thought to thought. A flattering thought, you're an inflated I. A critical thought, you're a deflated I. So your sense of I is changing thought to thought. And every thought is trying to create the moment's personality. So what Sri Aurobindo is saying, to feel eternity as its very stuff and reject the moment's personality. The thought is not mine. The I created by the thought doesn't exist. Rejecting the moment's personality, know itself older than the birth of time. Creation and incident in its consciousness. Arcturus and Belphegor, they are stars bigger than the sun, grains of fire circling in a corner of its boundless self. So he is reminding us of the vastness that we are so vast that these huge stars, Arcturus and Belphegor, are grains of fire circling in a corner of its boundless self. The world's destruction, a small transient storm, in the calm infinity it has become. See, fear comes because we forget our eternity, isn't it? If we constantly lived with the sense of eternity and immortality, we can't be afraid, because the dimension of eternity is too big and the incident that threatens us is too small. Like, if you're afraid of something and I tell you, okay, once it passes, 10 years from now, will it matter? You'll say no. Even if I ask you an eternity from now, will it matter? Your answer will be a very emphatic no. So in the context of your eternity, there can't be fear. But when we forget that we are an eternal consciousness, then little things of the moment overwhelm us. So he's saying, the world's destruction, a small transient storm, in the calm infinity it has become. If thou wouldst a little loosen the vast chain, draw back from the world that the idea has made. Idea is thought. Draw back from the world created by your thought. Thy mind's selection from the infinite. Every mental narrative is the mind's selection from the infinite, right? Actually, the whole existence is infinite, but my mind is choosing to see what it sees and creating a narrative of it. So thy mind's selection from the infinite. The senses gloss on the infinitesimal's dance. Infinitesimal's dance is the quantum dance. The quantum dance of quantum particles, that's the infinitesimal. I keep telling you that example of the fan, that actually quantum particles are moving in and out of existence so fast that they give the illusion of speed. Like if that fan increases its speed to 10,000 times its maximum, it will appear to be a solid white disk you can hold. So that disk to my senses is appearing solid. but it's actually not what it appears to be. So that's what this line is saying. The senses gloss. The senses are making me believe something that doesn't exist on the infinitesimal's dance, the dance of quantum particle. Infinitesimal is very, very tiny. Then shalt thou know how the great bondage came. So it's a voice saying, draw back from the world, exactly what we did just now. Step back from thought. Draw back from the world and the idea that the idea has made. Thy mind's selection from the infinite. Thy senses gloss on the infinitesimal's dance. Then shalt thou know how the great bondage came. Bondage to what? Bondage to thought, bondage to being an imprisoner of compulsive thinking. Banish all thought from thee and be God's void. Banish all thought from thee and be God's void. Then shalt thou uncover the unknowable, and the superconscient conscious grow on thy tops. Superconscient is that part of us which we are not conscious of, but which is fully conscious of us, the infinite consciousness that we are. So when we banish all thought from us and we become God's voice, then shalt thou uncover the unknowable, and the superconscient conscious grow on thy tops. Infinity's vision through thy gaze shall pierce. Thou shalt look into the eyes of the unknown, find the hid truth in things seen null and false. So when you have that vision of infinite, whatever you're seeing now, you'll see it's not what it's appearing to be. There's a whole different reality behind it. Behind things known, discover mysteries rare. Thou shalt be one with God's bare reality. What is God's bare reality? What is God's bare reality?
Pure consciousness.
Pure consciousness, the awareness behind thought, the infinite awareness that each of us is behind the frontal thinking, and the miraculous world he has become, and the diviner miracles still to be. When nature, who is now unconscious God, each of us is a bit of nature which is unconscious God, translucent grows to the eternal light. Right now we are unconscious nature, we are opaque to God's light within us, we can't see it. But when we change, this nature loses its opacity and it becomes translucent to the light. When nature, who is now unconscious God, translucent grows to the eternal's light, her seeing, nature seeing his. So if you're reading Savitri, just remember her and he, Sri Aurobindo in different contexts. Sometimes she is the Divine Mother, sometimes she is the protagonist Savitri, and sometimes she is nature Prakriti. So you'll have to look at the context and figure out which she he's talking about. Here, her seeing his sight, her is Prakriti. Her seeing his sight, her walk, his steps of power. And life is filled with a spiritual joy, and matter is the spirit's willing pride. Consent to be nothing and none, dissolve time's work, cast off thy mind, step back from form and name, exactly what we did, cast off thy mind, step back from form and name. Form and name is thought, right? Nam, Roop, Gun, that's constantly the world of thought. Annul thyself, that only God may be. It's a beautiful line. It can be a mantra in meditation. Annul thyself, forget thyself, that only God may be. Know thyself, forget thyself. It's a beautiful passage. I'll read it without explanation. Just feel it inside you. His soul must be wider than the universe and feel eternity as its very stuff, rejecting the moment's personality, know itself older than the birth of time. Creation, an incident in its consciousness, Arcturus and Belphegor, grains of fire circling in a corner of its boundless self. The world's destruction, a small, transient storm, in the calm infinity it has become. If thou wouldst a little loosen the vast chain, draw back from the world that the idea has made. Thy mind's selection from the infinite, thy senses gloss on the infinitesimal's dance, then shalt thou know how the great bondage came. Banish all thought from thee and be God's void. Banish all thought from thee and be God's void. Then shalt thou uncover the unknowable, the superconscient conscious grow on thy tops. Infinity's vision through thy gaze shall pierce. Thou shalt look into the eyes of the unknown. Find the hid truth in things seen null and false. Behind things known discover mysteries rare. Thou shalt be one with God's bare reality and the miraculous world He has become, and the diviner miracles still to be, when nature, who is now unconscious God, translucent grows to the eternal's light, her seeing His sight, her walk His steps of power, and life is filled with a spiritual joy, and matter is the Spirit's willing bride. Consent to be nothing and none, dissolve time's work, cast off thy mind, step back from form and name, annul thyself that only God may be. Annul thyself that only God may be. Now these are again words of Sri Aurobindo. One is then aware of two consciousnesses, the inner one and the outer, which has to be changed into its counterpart and the instrument. This is the whole summary of yoga. We have an inner being which is full of light and possibility, and an outer being which is perhaps its opposite many times. So this outer being has to be transformed and made an instrument of the inner being. So we see how mother used to work on this. We've all heard of Hutta, right? She was with the mother, she grew up with the mother and very, very close to the mother. The mother used to actually sketch different scenes from Savitri, skeletal sketches. You've got the book. And Hutta would make paintings out of it. But when she just came to the ashram, she was in the grips of a difficult outer nature. She had quite a strong temper, and sometimes she would throw tantrums in the mother's presence. She would throw the flowers on the floor and she would say, I'm leaving, I'm not staying here. And one day she left like that and she was packing her bags. And mother sent someone after her with a note, and that person told Hutta that, do you know what the mother told me to tell you? So Hutta said, you can tell me, but I'm going anyways. So mother said to tell you that she doesn't know how much she loves me. Mother could see through her outer nature to the inner being which was so ripe and ready. And that broke Hutta. She unpacked her bags and came back to mother. So that was mother's whole work, to change the outer being, which is often so full of revolts and anger and whatever, and make it an instrument of the inner being. So one is then aware of two consciousnesses, the inner one and the outer, which has to be changed into its counterpart and instrument. That also must become full of peace, light, union with the divine. If the inner being does not manifest or act, the outer will never get transformed. The outer being is a means of expression only, not oneself. So your thoughts, which is your outer being, is a means of expression. It's not the real you, and it's not a statement on you. It's just something that's being expressed. One must not identify with it, for what it expresses is a personality formed by the old ignorant nature. If not identified, one can change it so as to express the true inner personality of the light. Further, Sri Aurobindo says, the true inner consciousness is a silent consciousness which has not to think out things, but gets the right perception, understanding and knowledge in a spontaneous way from within, and speaks or acts according to that. So the inner consciousness does not know thought, does not need thought to figure things out. It just spontaneously knows what to do without the intermediary of thought and acts from there. And the new consciousness that Mother and Sri Aurobindo are bringing down will be supramental, above thought. It won't need thought to function. So the witnessing poise is a very important aspect of the new consciousness they are bringing down. I don't know, many of us must have experienced when we are in Matri Mandir or Samadhi, sometimes we just fall into a space where thoughts slow down and they seem distant from us. And without knowing it, we've opened to the higher consciousness. And the nature of this higher consciousness is to be outside thought, is to be unaffected by thought. It is the eternal sunshine of a spotless mind. So, there are, we might say, two beings in us, one on the surface, our ordinary exterior mind, life, body consciousness, another behind the veil, an inner mind, an inner life, an inner physical consciousness constituting another or inner self. This inner self, once awake, opens in its turn to our true eternal self. It opens inwardly to the soul, called in the language of yoga the psychic being, the soul located in our heart center, the psychic being which supports our successive births, and at each birth assumes a new mind, life and body. So what reincarnates is the psychic being. It opens above to the self or spirit, in Sri Aurobindo's language, psychic being the Chaitya Purush and the self above the Jivatma, to the self or spirit which is unborn, and by conscious recovery of it, we transcend the changing personality and achieve freedom and full mastery over our nature. The real self is not anywhere on the surface, but deep within and above, psychic being and the consciousness overhead. Within is the soul supporting an inner mind, inner vital, inner physical, in which there is capacity for universal whiteness. The highest spiritual self is not even behind our personality and bodily existence, but it is above it and altogether exceeds it. Okay, these are beautiful, beautiful lines from Savitri, page 331. It's describing Ashwapati's state when he is very, very close to his soul. So it says, two beings he was. He here, again, when he says he, it is sometimes Satyavan, it is sometimes Ashwapati, Savitri's father, sometimes it is Purusha, the eternal consciousness. So you have to look at the context and figure it out. Here it is talking about Ashwapati's state. Two beings he was, one wide and free above, one struggling, bound, intense, its portion here. Again the same thing, the inner consciousness, the outer consciousness. One struggling, bound, intense, its portion here. A tie between them still could bridge two worlds. What are the two worlds? The world of our outer being and the world of our inner being. So taking Hutta's example, the outer world of anger and rebellion and the inner world of constant self-giving and psychic love, and both are simultaneously coexisting. So a tie between them still could bridge two worlds. There was a dim response, a distant breath. All had not ceased in the unbounded hush. His heart lay somewhere, conscious and alone, far down below him like a lamp in night. So beautiful, his psychic being is described as a glowing lamp in the night. The night is our unconsciousness. But in the midst of that unconsciousness of the night, the psychic being glows. Far down below him like a lamp in night. Abandoned it lay, alone, imperishable. The psychic being is a light which is eternal, it never perishes. Immobile, it was silent with excess of passionate will. What a beautiful play of words. We can never imagine that silence can be passionate and have a strong will. We feel silence is just that. But the psychic being is a silence which is immobile with excess of passionate will. What is the passionate will of the psychic being? Huh? Yeah, but for us, aspiration. The psychic being is the center of our aspiration, and it's full of the passion of its will to reunite with its source. So immobile with excess of passionate will, his living, sacrificed and offered heart, absorbed in adoration mystical. The psychic being is always turned to light like a sunflower towards the sun. Even if in our outer being we are rebelling and with darkness, our psychic being is always and always, as he says, turned to its far off fount of light and love. Reading this again, for me it's one of my most favorite passages. It's beautiful. Two beings he was, one wide and free above, one struggling, bound, intense, its portion here. A tie between them still could bridge two worlds. There was a dim response, a distant breath. All had not ceased in the unbounded hush. His heart lay somewhere conscious and alone. Far down below him like a lamp in night. Abandoned it lay, alone, imperishable, immobile with excess of passionate will. His living, sacrificed and offered heart, absorbed in adoration mystical, turned to its far off fount of light and love. So this is beautiful. Whatever we are on our surface, to know that deep down we have this magical heart, always absorbed in adoration mystical and always turned to its far off fount of light and love. So now this is again words of Sri Aurobindo. As we gain in clarity and the turmoil of egoistic effort gives place to calmer knowledge, we recognize the source of the growing light within us. We recognize it retrospectively as we realize how all our obscure and conflicting movements have been determined towards an end that we only now begin to perceive. How even before our entrance into the path of the yoga, the evolution of our life has been designedly led towards its turning point. So as we grow in light, we recognize how perfectly planned our life is, how everything is perfectly as it needs to be beyond our rebellions. So as the light grows within us, we see this. For now we begin to understand the sense of our struggles and efforts, successes and failures. At last we are able to seize the meaning of our ordeals and sufferings and can appreciate the help that was given us by all that hurt and resisted, and the utility of our very falls and stumblings. So there's a beautiful Zen story. Once a well-known general of a land went to visit two Zen masters who were at a monastery. I forget their names, so let's call them Master A and Master B. So Master A welcomed the general and said that, "Welcome, General, you have great potential to master the teachings of Zen." And Master B said, "You must be joking. He would never learn Zen in 10 lifetimes. So at first the general tightened and he said, "Nobody in my land speaks to me like that." And then suddenly he softened and he smiled. And a glimpse of enlightenment came and he built a monastery not for Master A but for Master B. Do you get the sense of the Zen story? That a real Zen practitioner prefers truth over flattery and prefers the difficult way over the way of convenience. So the difficult people in our life are often the Zen Master B, who are saying the things to wake us up. Because first we react with rebellion, but then something broke through him. He saw how his ego was reacting, and something in him glimpsed something beyond the ego. We recognize this divine leading afterwards, not retrospectively, but immediately in molding of our thoughts. So initially we realize it in retrospect. We go through all our churnings and then we see, oh, this happened to bring me to that. But as the light grows within us, it's not a retrospective thing. As it's happening, you realized, oh yeah, this is happening for this. This is the growth it's inviting to me to make. This is the weak spot in which I'm being hit, so that light may be brought to it. Rumi's words, the wound is where the light enters. Wherever you have a wound, it creates place for light to enter. So, we recognize it too in a more personal relation, that from the first touch, or at least at the last seizes us, we feel the eternal presence of a supreme master, friend, lover, teacher. We recognize it in the essence of our being as it develops into lightness and oneness with a greater and wider existence. Wherefore we perceive that this miraculous development is not the result of our own efforts. An eternal perfection is molding us into its image. I think this whole passage is from Synthesis of Yoga. It's very beautiful. What a line. An eternal perfection is molding us into its own image. Just repeat it in your mind. It's so beautiful and eternal. It's eternal and it's perfect. And through all the trials and troubles of our life, it's molding us into its own image, the image of eternal perfection. One who is the Lord or Ishvara of the yogic philosophies, the guide in the conscious being, Chaitya Guru or Antaryami, the absolute of the thinker, the unknowable of the agnostic, the universal force of the materialist, the supreme soul and the supreme Shakti, the one who is differently named and imaged by the religions is the master of our yoga. To see, know, become, fulfill this one in our inner selves and in all our outer nature was always the secret goal. So what is the goal of life? To become this secret nature in our outward manifestation. The unconscious God that each of us is, to transform into conscious God. To be conscious of Him in all parts of our being and equally in all that the dividing mind sees as outside our being. It is the consummation of the individual consciousness to be possessed by Him and possess Him in ourselves and in all things is the term of all empire and mastery. To enjoy Him in all experience of passivity and activity, of peace and of power, of unity and of difference, is the happiness which the jiva, the individual soul manifested in the world, is obscurely seeking. So, we are desiring different things, but actually we are desiring the God that we are. So, a poet beautifully said, every desire is an excuse for God. Actually, we are desiring ourselves, but we don't know how to reach it, so that it detours into desiring everything else. Therefore, the mantra from Upanishad, Apta Kamam, all desires are fulfilled in Atma Kamam, in the desire for the Atma. And then your Akamam, all your other desires melt away, because in being the self, you are everything. And when you are in this form, it is Shokantaram. All shok, all grief, all unhappiness goes away. So, to enjoy Him in all experience of passivity and activity, of peace, of power, of unity, of difference, is the happiness which the jiva, the individual soul manifested in the world, is obscurely seeking. This is the entire definition of the aim of integral yoga. It is the rendering in personal experience of truth which the universal nature has hidden in herself. The surest way towards this integral fulfillment is to find the master of the secret who dwells within us. Open us. So this is the Uttamam Rahasya of the Gita. Krishna gives Arjun the secret of all secrets in 2 shlokas, where he says, the master of the yoga, I am the master of the yoga seated in your own heart, who dwells within us. Open ourselves constantly to the divine power, which is also the divine wisdom and love. Trust to it to effect the conversion. So that famous Gita shloka, Sarva Dharman Parityajya, abandon all other seekings and way of beings. Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, take refuge only in me. Aham Tvam Moksha Yishyami Ma Shucha, I will deliver you from all the weaknesses that plague you. Don't grieve. I'm in charge of your life. It's up to me to purify your nature. Just take refuge in me. The ignorance is necessary, Sri Aurobindo says, though quite subordinate term which the universal knowledge has imposed on itself, that the movement might be possible. Not a blunder and a fall, but a purposeful descent. So, if in my highest nature I am all-knowing, why am I so limited and ignorant as I sit here? That's the fundamental question, right? So, if you play a game, suppose you play football. Okay, a game has to have, my arms are fully functional, but to play the game I can't use my hand to push the ball. So it's a limitation. Every game will have some limitation imposed on me, right? When I'm playing blind man's buff, the limitation is my eyes can fully see, but I'm covering my eyes to play the game. So when God plays his Leela, he is all capable. But to play his game, he has to impose a limitation on himself. And that is the correct definition of Maya according to Sri Aurobindo. Maya is the self-limiting capacity of the infinite to appear finite, even to himself. That's the Maya he plays with himself to play the Leela of the world. Without using my hands, can I still kick the ball? Without my eyes, can I still catch the person? Without the omniscience that I actually have access to in my deepest self, can I still find my way through life? That's his Leela. So, to find and embody the all delight in an intense summary of its manifoldness, to achieve a possibility of infinite existence which could not be achieved in other conditions, to create out of matter a temple of divinity would seem to be the task imposed on the spirit born into the material universe. So now this is again a very lovely passage, page 108, Savitri. Her giant energy tied to petty forms. Her here is Prakriti. Prakriti's giant energy tied to petty forms. In the slow tentative motion of her power, with only frail, blunt instruments for use, she has accepted as her nature's need and given to man as a stupendous work, a labor to God's impossible. So, Prakriti has given to man to do a work which gods can't do. Gods don't have a psychic being, so they are in a typal plane. They stay there, they can't evolve. If they have to evolve, they have to take birth on earth as a human being. Therefore, there are stories of God who choose to come down on earth to evolve, because earth is the evolutionary plane. So she's saying that with frail, blunt instruments, our instruments are mind, emotions, body, which are so ignorant, so frail, so blunt, but this higher wisdom has given to man as a stupendous work, a labor to God's impossible. What is this labor? What Sri Aurobindo has said in the earlier line, to create out of matter a temple of divinity, to transform into our divine truth in this physical body. A labor to God's impossible, a life living hardly in a field of death. That's how most human beings are, no? Living dead, just an automaton. So somebody said death isn't the tragedy. The real tragedy that most of us live dead. Because when we are living not conscious of ourselves and our goal, we are like the living dead. So a life living hardly in a field of death, its portion claims of immortality. A brute half-conscious body serves as means, a mind that must recover a knowledge lost. This is about us. Our body is half animal, half conscious. Our mind is lost in ignorance, held in the stone grip of the world's inconscience, and wearing still these countless knots of law. So we have these frail, blunt instrument, an ignorant mind, an unconscious vital, an unconscious physical, and we are bound to the laws of karma. So it's like our hands are tied at every level. A spirit bound stand up as nature's king, So he's saying, though we are in so much bondage, it is demanded of us that we stand up as nature's king. When do we stand up as nature's king? When we are not, see, what is nature? Nature is your thoughts, your emotions, your body sensations. And right now we are puppets in the hands of nature. One negative thought and we start shouting, one positive thought we start jumping. We have no control over it. But when we are really outside the thought, when we are like that eternal sunshine of a spotless mind that doesn't change with the changing thoughts and emotions and body sensations, then we are moving towards being the king of nature. Otherwise, we are slaves of nature. So, a spirit bound, stand up as nature's king. So, this is what the higher consciousness is telling us. You have to do this. Then Sri Aurobindo says, a mighty kinship is this daring's cause. This higher consciousness is daring to do this. It's like a very powerful parent telling a child with Down syndrome that you have to receive the IQ of Einstein. And you will say, what's wrong with you? How can you dare to do this? So Sri Aurobindo is saying, a mighty kinship, a mighty relationship, like I have a kinship with my parents. I have a kinship with my divine parents. So a mighty kinship is this daring's cause. All we attempt in this imperfect world looks forward or looks back beyond time's glass to its pure idea and firm inviolate type, in an absolute creation's flawless skill. So he's saying that nature has entrusted this task to man, but man is bound on all fronts and he's not able to rise to the occasion. But if nature dares to do this, it's because it knows that man has an eternal kinship with his divine parent. And in Savitri, there's another beautiful line, his knowledge overrules our nescience. Nescience is ignorant. However ignorant I am, the divine parent who is also me, his knowledge compensates for it. So because I have this kinship, nature dares to give me this task to fulfill. To seize the absolute in shapes that pass. So beautiful. Do you get what this line is saying? It's so gorgeous. To seize the absolute in shapes that pass. The whole world, Jagat, is shapes that are passing. But behind these transient shapes which are flickering in and out of existence, there's an absolute behind. So when our inner sight opens, we seize this absolute with our vision in shapes that pass. To fix the eternal's touch in time-made things. So marvelous. Things are time-made. But when we have that higher consciousness, we can fix the eternal's touch in time-made things. This is the law of all perfection here. So I'll just read a few lines of this. Savitri actually should not be explained because it explains itself to you, but I don't have a choice. But now I'm just reading it out, let it explain itself to you. Her giant energy tied to petty forms in the slow tentative motion of her power, with only frail blunt instruments for use, she has accepted as her nature's need and given to man as his stupendous work, a labor to the gods impossible, a life living hardly in a field of death, its portion claims of immortality. A brute half-conscious body serves as means, a mind that must recover a knowledge lost, held in stone grip by the world's inconscience, and wearing still these countless knots of law, a spirit bound, stand up as nature's king. A mighty kinship is this daring's cause. All we attempt in this imperfect world looks forward or looks back beyond time's glass to its pure idea and firm inviolate type, in an absolute creation's flawless skill, to seize the absolute in shapes that pass, to fix the eternal's touch in time-made things. This is the law of all perfection here. Now, these are words of the mother. Only when there, instead of I, there is nothing anymore. You know, it is altogether flat like this, gesture signifying something immense, smooth without a wrinkle. Having a kind of, it is not even expressed by words, but by a very stable sensation of what thou willest, what as thou willest. Indeed, to have a concrete sensation that this, the body, this does not exist. It is only used, there is only that. It is that which does like this gesture of pressure, this feeling of that, this conscious vastness which mother stretches out her arms. In the end, you do see it. Seeing is not a vision with images, but it's a vision. I do not know with what, but a very concrete, much more concrete than images. A vision of this vast force, this vast vibration which presses, presses, presses. And then the world which wriggles under it, and the thing which opens. And when it opens and enters and spreads, this is the only solution, there is no other. All the rest, it is aspirations, conceptions, expectations. It is the Superman, it is not the supramental. I think this passage is from the agenda, so she probably wrote it at a very late stage in her life. So in the agenda, very often she says, when you tell her what she said in an earlier part, she said, but I'm way past all that. So she does tell us to aspire and all earlier, but here she's saying aspiration and all that still belongs to the Superman. It is not the supramental. It is a higher humanity which tries to draw the whole of its humanity upward. But that is of no use, of no use. The picture is very clear of the whole humanity which clings in order to climb, which seeks to hold like this but does not give itself. It wants to take. Aspiration is wanting to take at the end of the day. No, that metaphor of the baby cat and the baby monkey, right? So it wants to take, and that will not do. It must do away with itself. Then the thing will be able to come and take its place. That's the whole secret. For example, all this side of humanity that wants to take things by force, pull them up there, gesture indicating as high as the forehead. It is interesting, but it is not that, not at all. All these possibilities must be exhausted so that something in humanity is able to understand that there is only that. Mother opens her hands in a gesture of self-effacement. Forget yourself, annul yourself, and then let oneself lie prostrate till one disappears. Indeed, that is the most difficult thing to do, to learn to disappear. Annul thyself that only God may be. Then Mother again, O Lord, my sweet Master, sole reality, dispel this feeling of the I. I have now understood that so long as there will be a manifested universe, the I will remain necessary for the manifestation. To dissolve or even to diminish or weaken the I is to deprive thee of the means of manifestation in whole or part. But what must be radically and definitively suppressed is the illusory thought, the illusory feeling, the illusory sensation of a separate I. At no moment, in no circumstance must we forget that our I has no reality outside thee. O my sweet Master, my divine Lord, tear out from my heart this illusion, so that thy servant may become pure and faithful, and faithfully and integrally bring back to thee all that is thy due. In silence, let me contemplate and understand this supreme ignorance that I exist separate from the divine, and dispel it forever. Chase the shadow from my heart, and let thy light reign in it, its uncontested sovereign. So this is from Mother's prayers and meditation, her spiritual diary, where she would address the Lord every day. So the mother saying, the first point is to not place oneself in thought, feeling or action at the center of the universe, so that it exists only in terms of oneself. One is part of the universe. If you look at how the I mechanism functions, it wants the whole world to revolve around it. If I want to go out, it shouldn't rain. Never mind if rain is required. Everything must revolve around me. If somebody else gets praise, I don't like it. If something doesn't this, you just have to observe yourself to see how absurd the sense of I is, and how many absurd things it makes me do. And that sense of I which controls me is an illusion. It's a mental construct. It doesn't even really exist. It's like a personalized AI inside me. But I'm thinking, I was just showing Ashumi an AI generated girl who's gone viral and people are in love with her, you know. But she doesn't even exist, and the comments are full of I love you, you're so beautiful, but she is AI. And that's the same with us. We are personalized, the I is a personalized AI we've fallen in love with. It doesn't exist, and it makes us do all kinds of crazy things. So Mother says, the first point is not to place oneself in thought, feeling or action at the center of the universe, so that it exists only in terms of oneself. One is part of the universe. One can unite with it, but the Supreme Lord alone is its center, because He surpasses and contains it. So Sri Aurobindo says, the aim of my yoga is to change the axis of existence, which is I-centered, and shift it to being God-centered. If I can shift all my doing from about me to, and Mother says, okay, you'll tell me you don't know God, but she says, I'm here. I've come from infinity to show you God. You have me, surrender to me. So the first thing one learns on the way is the joy of giving is far greater than the joy of taking. Then gradually one learns that to forget oneself is the source of immutable peace. So Mother says that the way is difficult, but self-giving and self-forgetting makes it easy. She says that people who are depressed are necessarily very egoistic people. They only think I, me, this is wrong with math. They don't think beyond themselves. If they were to think more than themselves, they wouldn't be. There's a story of a man who was so depressed that he was going to commit suicide, and on the way he met a little child who tugged at him and asked him for help, and he just gave it, and in giving that help he forgot about himself, and when he forgot about himself, his whole plot to commit suicide vanished. So there's a great truth in, if you think only about yourself, you'll go on being miserable. The way out of your misery, Mother says, is to think beyond yourself, to forget yourself. The first thing one learns on the way is that the joy of giving is far greater than the joy of taking. Then gradually one learns that to forget oneself is the source of immutable peace. Later on, in this self-forgetfulness, one finds the divine, and that is the source of ever-increasing bliss. The true nirvana is the disappearance of the ego into the splendor of the Supreme. So the Aurobindonian nirvana is different from Buddha's nirvana. Buddha's nirvana is to escape life and go into the immutable peace beyond. But the true nirvana is the disappearance of the ego and the splendor of the Supreme. And this way is what I call the positive way, the self-giving that is integral, total, perfect, without reserve, without bargaining. So I keep giving you this example. When you fall in love with a person for the first time, it's your first taste of self-forgetting. Unless you're a very egoistic person, then even in loving the person, you're always thinking about how is this person making me feel special, and then it ends in disaster. But if you're not like that and you're truly fallen in love with a person, day and night you're thinking only about the person and you forget about yourself. But that is so limited. If you substitute the person with the divine, and day and night you're thinking about the divine to the point of forgetting yourself, how happy you'll actually be. In the mere fact of not thinking of oneself, not existing for oneself, referring nothing to oneself, thinking only of what is supremely beautiful, luminous, delightful, powerful, compassionate and infinite, there is such a profound delight, and nothing can be compared to it. This is the only thing that deserves, that is worthy of being attempted. All the rest is only marking time. Man has a right to beatitude, since that is what he was created for. But beatitude is joy, but any egocentric movement is the very opposite of this beatitude. She said such an important thing. Any thought of I-ness is the opposite of beatitude. The moment you think, I didn't get this, I was treated badly, I couldn't reach there, it's the opposite of beatitude. So the moment you keep thinking I, you'll necessarily be unhappy. So if you seek it for yourself alone, you repel it instead of attracting it. By self-forgetfulness, by self-giving, without asking anything in return, by merging, so to say, into this beatitude, so that it may shine upon all, you find the inner peace and joy which never leaves you. Then Mother was asked, what is the difference between self-forgetfulness and self-giving? So Mother repeatedly says, to walk the sunlit path, two things are important, self-forgetting and self-giving. And she was asked, what is the difference between the two? So Mother says, self-forgetfulness may simply be a passive state resulting from a total lack of egoism. You're not thinking of yourself, you're just doing for others without really thinking about yourself. Self-giving, which takes its full value when it's directed towards the divine, is an active movement which includes love in its purest and highest form. A total self-giving to the divine is the true purpose of existence. So beautiful. A total self-giving to the divine is the true purpose of existence. So, it's not in your PDF, but we'll end with this. Sri Aurobindo has written a beautiful sonnet called Surrender. And that, to my mind, most beautifully captures the whole essence of self-giving. So I'll just read it out to you. O thou, of whom I am the instrument. Sri Aurobindo is writing this, and whatever Sri Aurobindo writes to the divine, apply it to ourselves. That's what he's written it for. O secret spirit and nature housed in me. So we read about the two beings, the higher being which just witnesses and the lower being which is involved in everything. That's nature. So he says, O secret spirit and nature housed in me, let all my mortal being now be blent in thy still glory of divinities. Total self-giving. Let all my mortal being now be blent in thy still glory of divinity. I have given my mind to be dug thy channel mind. So I don't want my mind to channel my thoughts. I've offered my mind to be dug thy channel mind. I have offered up my will to be thy will. My will leads me astray. I don't want my own will. Let my will be your will. Let nothing of myself be left behind in our union mystic and unutterable. In my heart shall throb with the world beats of thy love. Normally my heart is beating with my own heartbeat, which races when I'm excited, which is slow, which is following my rhythm. But when I'm one with you, my heart shall throb with the world beats of thy love. What a marvelous line. My heart shall throb with the world beats of thy love. My body become thy engine for earth use. In my nerves and veins thy rapture stream shall move. My thoughts shall be hounds of light for thy power to lose. Keep only my soul to adore eternally and meet thee in each form and soul of thee. So he's saying, take everything, take my mind, take my body, take my will, but leave that one duality by which I can adore you in everything. So keep only my soul to adore eternally and meet thee in each form and soul of thee. So to lift the title of this talk, know thyself, forget thyself. Know the truth of who you are behind your thought, and don't pay too much attention to the I that thoughts are constantly generating. Forget that. Live a life not centered around that I. So with that, let's conclude. Hands together in a namaste. So just a collective aspiration before we do 3 Oms. We started our talk with the metaphor of the sun. That sunshine does not change whether it falls on an ugly garbage dump or a beautiful garden. And in this capacity to not change is the sunshine's freedom. I too, unknown to myself, am what the Sufis call the eternal sunshine of a spotless mind. There is a part of me unknown to me that never changes with the changing mind, body and emotions. And when I'm conscious of that part of me, that is true freedom in human experience. So next time a thought of anxiety or any negative thought arises, let me remember 2 things about thoughts. Thoughts don't tell me the truth, and thoughts are not me. I am outside thoughts. And so, not judge the thought, not generate attachment or aversion towards it, but step outside the thought and just watch it, unchanged by it. If even for a moment I can experience that I can be unchanged behind the changing thoughts, I experience freedom. I experience a small glimpse of being the king of nature rather than its slave. So, through the week, whenever negative thinking comes, instead of being enslaved by it, to step outside it, to watch it, to recognize that I'm actually untouched by it. That is my freedom. May we all have glimpses of this higher consciousness, the witnessing consciousness that Mother and Sri Aurobindo have labored so hard to make accessible to us. May their grace be with us in our efforts. Long, slow inhalation, breathe out with Om.